Previously on The Silent Husband. Daniel sat in his car, parked outside the house he paid for, staring at the front door. 14 years of marriage, 2 daughters, and a wife who slowly turned into a stranger. He gave everything. He worked double shifts. He swallowed his pride. He stayed quiet when she raised her voice. And in return, she made him feel invisible in his own home. Last time, you saw the beginning of the end. You saw what she did. You saw what he endured. And you saw the moment he realized the woman he married was gone. Now, the story continues. You want to know the scariest sound in a marriage? It's not yelling. It's not a door slamming. It's not even the word divorce. It's silence. The kind of silence that shows up one Tuesday night after years of noise. The kind where he puts his fork down, looks at her across the table, and simply stops. Stops arguing. Stops defending himself. Stops trying to explain why he came home late, or why he forgot to call, or why the dishes aren't done. He just lets it go. And she thinks she won. She thinks, finally, he gets it. He's calming down. No, that's not what happened. What happened is something far worse than any fight they've ever had. Something that no amount of couples therapy or weekend getaways or late-night conversations can undo. He stopped fighting for the marriage, not because he's weak, not because he doesn't care, because something inside him, the part that used to believe things could get better, that part went dark, quietly, without warning, like a pilot light that burns for years and one night just goes out. If you know exactly what I'm talking about, stay with me tonight. This one's going to cut deep. Let me paint a picture for you. There's a version of this man, the one who stopped fighting, that existed 5, maybe 10 years ago. And that version? He was relentless. He'd come home after a 12-hour shift and still ask her about her day. He'd sit through conversations that felt more like interrogations. Why didn't you text me back? Why didn't you notice the trash was full? Why don't you ever plan anything for us? And he'd take it. Every time. He'd take it because somewhere in the back of his mind, he believed that if he just tried a little harder, loved a little louder, showed up a little more, she'd see him again. The way she used to. Back when his voice made her laugh instead of roll her eyes. Back when she'd reach for his hand in the car without thinking about it. Back when "I love you" wasn't a reflex, but a confession. He remembers that. Every detail. And the fact that he remembers it so clearly is exactly what makes the present so unbearable. See, nobody talks about this kind of grief. The grief of loving someone who's still alive, still in the house, still sleeping 3 feet away from you, but gone. That's a particular kind of hell that doesn't come with sympathy cards or support groups. Nobody brings you a casserole when your wife stops being your friend. Nobody checks on you when your marriage turns into a business arrangement where you provide and she manages, and somewhere between the mortgage and the school drop-offs, you both forgot you were supposed to be partners, not roommates, not co-workers, partners. But here's what happened slowly, over years, without either of them noticing. She started keeping a list, not on paper, in her nervous system. Every disappointment, every unmet expectation, every time he said he'd do something and forgot, every birthday that wasn't romantic enough, every fight where he raised his voice instead of staying calm. She cataloged it all, and every new entry made the old ones heavier. And he started keeping a different kind of list. Also not on paper, also in his body. His list was made of silences. Every time he wanted to say something and didn't. Every compliment he held back because he knew it would be ignored. Every time he reached for her in bed and felt her stiffen like he was a stranger. 2 people, 2 invisible lists, both growing longer every day. both convinced the other person's list didn't exist. That's not a marriage falling apart. That's two people slowly building walls with the bricks the other person hands them. And the thing about walls is, at first, they feel like protection. They feel necessary. They feel like the only sane response to being hurt over and over again in the same small ways. But eventually, the walls get so high that you can't see each other anymore. You can hear a voice on the other side, familiar, distant, but you can't make out the words. And after a while, you stop trying to listen. That's where he is right now. Behind a wall he didn't plan to build. In a house that used to feel like home. Next to a woman who used to feel like everything. And the worst part, the part that keeps him up at 3 in the morning, is that he can't pinpoint the exact moment it broke. There was no explosion, no single event, no affair, no betrayal you could point to and say, there. That's where it ended. It just eroded, like a coastline losing ground to the ocean, one wave at a time. And by the time he noticed how far the shore had moved, he was already underwater. There's a question I want you to sit with for a minute. When was the last time you fought for something in your marriage and felt like it actually mattered? Not the argument about dishes, not the one about her mother visiting again. I mean the last time you stood in front of her, heart open, and said something real. Something that cost you something to say, and she received it. Not dismissed it, not redirected it, not turned it into a fight about something else from 3 years ago. Actually received it, held it. Let it land. If you can't remember, that's the answer. Because a man doesn't stop fighting all at once. He stops in stages, and every stage looks different from the outside than it feels on the inside. Stage 1 looks like effort. He's buying flowers. He's suggesting date nights. He's reading articles about communication. He's swallowing his pride and saying, "I'm sorry," even when he's not sure what he's sorry for. He's doing everything the world tells him a good husband should do, and it's not working. Stage 2 looks like frustration. He raises his voice sometimes. He gets short. He snaps over small things. Not because the small things matter, but because the big things never get addressed. He's not angry at the dishes in the sink. He's angry because he feels invisible. But he doesn't have the language for that. So it comes out sideways. And she says, "Why are you always so angry?" And he doesn't know how to explain that he's not angry. He's drowning. Stage 3 looks like withdrawal. He gets quieter. He stops suggesting things. He comes home, eats, watches something on his phone, goes to bed. He's pleasant, agreeable, easy to live with. And she thinks this is progress. If this is hitting you right now, you're exactly where you need to be. Stage 4, and this is the one that changes everything. Stage 4 looks like peace. He's calm, steady. He doesn't argue. He doesn't pursue. He doesn't ask for anything. He smiles at the right moments. He says, "Sounds good," to whatever she suggests. He is, by all external measures, the perfect husband. But he's not there. He's performing a role in a play he's already decided to leave. And every calm, agreeable, easygoing day is just him quietly walking toward the exit without making a sound. And here's what makes the stage 4 so devastating. By the time a man reaches that place, he's already grieved the marriage. He's already gone through the anger, the bargaining, the sadness, the denial, all of it. Internally, alone, in the shower, in the car, on the drive to work, in the 15 minutes between pulling into the driveway and actually opening the front door. He's done his mourning. She just doesn't know it yet. So when the day finally comes, when he says the words, when he asks for the separation, when he starts looking at apartments, she's blindsided. Where is this coming from? I thought we were doing better. And he wants to scream. He wants to say, "Better? I've been dying in front of you for years and you thought we were doing better? But he doesn't scream. Because stage 4 men don't scream. They've already used up every word they had. There's nothing left to say. So he just nods and says, I know. I'm sorry. And she hears that as cold. She hears that as a man who doesn't care. A man who gave up too easily. A man who didn't try hard enough. She doesn't hear what it actually is. The final exhale of a man who tried so hard for so long that the trying itself broke him. I want to talk about a word that most men have never heard used to describe them. Depleted. We use that word for soil, for batteries, for bank accounts. We understand it when it's about things. But when it's about a man, a husband, a father, we don't have space for it. A man is supposed to be a well that never runs dry. You draw from him, his energy, his patience, his income, his stability, his presence. And he's supposed to refill on his own. Quietly. Without asking for help. Without even acknowledging that the water level is dropping. And for a long time, he does. He refills on small things. A good night's sleep. A cold beer on Friday. His kid falling asleep on his chest. A compliment from a co-worker that his wife would never think to give him. He patches himself together with whatever he can find and shows up the next morning like nothing happened. But depletion is cumulative. That's the thing nobody tells you. It doesn't hit all at once. It accumulates in the background. Like credit card debt you keep meaning to check but never do. And one day the bill arrives and the number is so big, you don't even feel panic anymore. You just feel numb. That's what emotional depletion looks like in a man. He stops caring about things he used to love. The hobby he had in the garage hasn't touched it in months. The buddies he used to grab a beer with, he stopped reaching out because pretending to be fine got too exhausting. The gym membership canceled, not because of money, because getting out of bed already takes everything he's got. And the woman he lives with sees all of this. She does, but she interprets it differently. He's lazy. He doesn't care about himself anymore. He's let himself go. He's not the man I married. You're right. He's not the man you married. Because the man you married had a fire in him. And you spent years pouring water on it, not with malice, but with indifference. And indifference, in the long run, kills more flames than cruelty ever could. Cruelty, at least, is something you can fight against. Indifference is fighting smoke. Let me take this somewhere uncomfortable, because I think there's a conversation happening under the surface of a lot of marriages that neither person is brave enough to have. And it goes something like this. He's thinking, I don't know who I am anymore. I've given everything to this family, to this house, to this life we built, and I don't recognize myself. I'm tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix. And the worst part is, if I said this out loud, she'd make it about her. She's thinking, something is wrong with him. He used to be present. He used to try. Now he just exists here. I feel alone, even when he's sitting right next to me. But every time I bring it up, he shuts down. 2 people. Same house. Same bed. Completely different realities. And here's the tragedy. They're both right. They're both telling the truth. They're both suffering. But they've lost the one thing that could bridge the gap between their 2 truths. Trust. Not the, are you cheating on me kind of trust. The deeper kind. The kind that says, if I show you the most fragile part of myself, you won't use it against me later. That trust dies quietly. In the middle of an argument when she brings up something he told her in confidence. In the silence after he tries to be vulnerable and gets met with a sigh. In the way she talks about him to her friends, not knowing he overheard. And the version of him she described was someone he wouldn't want to know. Once that trust is gone, a man doesn't fight anymore. he just survives. Let me tell you about a man I know. I won't use his real name. Let's call him David. David was the kind of man every neighborhood had. Reliable, steady. The guy who'd help you jump your car at 6 in the morning without complaining. The guy who coached his daughter's soccer team, even though he'd never played soccer. The guy who built a deck in his backyard with his own hands because his wife saw one she liked on Pinterest. David loved being needed. That was his language. He didn't write love letters. He didn't buy jewelry. He showed up every day with his hands and his time and his presence. And for a while, that was enough. But somewhere around year 7, things started to shift. His wife, let's call her Sarah, started wanting something different. She wanted him to talk more, to share more, to open up about his feelings and his fears and his childhood and his dreams. And David tried. He really did. But every time he opened that door, even just a crack, something went wrong. He'd say he was stressed about money. She'd panic and make it worse. He'd say he felt disconnected from her. She'd take it personally and cry for 2 days. He'd say he was struggling at work. She'd start offering solutions before he even finished the sentence. So he learned, not from a book, from experience. He learned that opening up created more problems than it solved. And slowly, without making a conscious decision, he sealed that door shut. Here's where it gets complicated. Sarah wasn't wrong for wanting more from him. She wasn't wrong for wanting a husband who could share his inner world. That's a reasonable thing to want. But what she didn't realize, what most people don't realize, is that emotional openness requires emotional safety. You can't ask someone to be vulnerable in a room where vulnerability has been punished. And she had punished it. Not intentionally, not cruelly, but consistently. Every time his honesty created a crisis, he filed that away. Every time his vulnerability was met with her anxiety instead of her empathy, he took note. Every time he tried to share a feeling and it became about her feeling, he built another inch of wall, until the wall was so high that she forgot there was ever a door there at all. And she'd say to her friends, "He never opens up to me. I don't know what he's thinking. It's like living with a stranger." And she was right. She was living with a stranger. But she helped create him. David stopped fighting on a Sunday morning, not during a fight, not after a big event. It was quiet, ordinary. Sarah was in the kitchen making breakfast, talking about her sister's wedding plans. David was standing by the window, coffee in hand, watching his daughter ride her bike in the driveway, and a thought entered his mind. Clear, simple, uninvited. I'm done. Not angry, not dramatic, just a fact. Like noticing the sky is gray, like realizing the coffee is cold. He didn't say it out loud. He didn't even react. He just took a sip of cold coffee and said, "That sounds nice, babe." And Sarah smiled because she thought everything was fine. That's the moment. That's the one this whole video is about. Not the fight, not the divorce papers, not the moving truck. It's the Sunday morning, the cold coffee, the quiet realization that the man you've been for the last decade doesn't have to be the man you are for the next one. It's terrifying and freeing and lonely, all at the same time, and nobody around him will notice for months. There's something that happens after the moment, after the quiet decision, something nobody prepares you for. You grieve forward. Most people understand grieving what you've lost. A death, a breakup, a failure. That grief looks backward. It mourns what was. But this grief, the kind David felt, the kind a lot of you are feeling right now, this grief looks forward. It mourns what will never be. He'll never come home to a house where someone is genuinely happy to see him. Not this house. Not with this person. That fantasy, the one where she runs to the door when he gets home, the one he probably never admitted he had. It's dead. He'll never hear her say the thing he's been waiting years to hear. Not, "I love you." She still says that out of habit, the way you say "bless you" after a sneeze. He's waiting for something deeper, something like, "I see what you've been carrying, and I'm sorry I made you carry it alone." She'll never say it, because she doesn't see it. And at this point, he's stopped expecting her to. He'll never be the father who lives in the same house as his kids every single night. That one cuts deepest. Not the marriage, not the loss of her, the loss of the hallway, the bedtime routine, the sound of little feet at 6 in the morning running to his side of the bed. He hasn't left yet, but he's already mourning that sound. Forward grief is a strange thing. You walk around carrying sadness for things that haven't happened yet. You sit at the dinner table looking at your family and you're already missing them. You're physically present in a life you've mentally exited. And the dissonance, the gap between where your body is and where your mind is, that's what makes you feel like you're going insane. You're not insane. You're in transition. And transition is the loneliest place a human being can stand. I want to talk about something that doesn't get discussed enough. What happens to a man's identity when he reaches this point? Because for most of his adult life, David's identity was built on 3 things: being a provider, being a father, and being a husband. Those 3 pillars held up everything: his routine, his motivation, his sense of purpose, his reason for getting out of bed when the alarm goes off and his body begs for just 5 more minutes. And now, one of those pillars is cracking. The husband pillar. The one that was supposed to be the foundation of the other 2. And when one pillar cracks, the others start to shake. He starts questioning everything. Not just the marriage, himself. Am I a good father? Or am I just present? Am I a good provider? Or am I just functional? Do I even know what I want? Or have I spent so long giving everyone else what they want that I forgot how to want things for myself? Those questions don't come during the day. They come at night, in the dark, when the house is silent and there's nothing left to distract him from the truth he's been running from. And here's where a lot of men make a critical mistake. They think the answer is to leave, to change the external circumstances, to move out, start over, find someone new, someone who gets them. But the men who've been through it, the ones on the other side, they'll tell you something different. Leaving solves the geography. It doesn't solve the man. If you don't understand how you got here, if you don't trace the steps back to the first time you swallowed a truth, the first time you chose peace over honesty, the first time you abandoned yourself to keep someone else comfortable, then you'll build the same walls in the next house, with the next person. And you'll end up right back in this same silent car, parked outside a different home, wondering how it happened again. The way out isn't through the door. The way out is through yourself. I want to pause for a second. Just a breath between what we've been through and where we're going. If you're still here, listening, really listening, then I don't think this is just a video for you. I think this is a conversation you've been waiting to have with someone who wouldn't judge you for having it. And if that's true, then I want you to know something. This channel exists for that. For the conversations that don't happen at dinner. For the things men think about but never say. For the space between what you show the world and what you carry alone. So if you want more of this, honest, no performance, no motivation posters, no one pretending to have all the answers, subscribe. Not for me. For you. Because the next time you're in that car or in that bed or standing in that kitchen feeling like the walls are closing in, I want you to have somewhere to go. That's all. Let's keep moving. And one more thing. If you're carrying something right now that feels too heavy to hold alone, there's a link in the description. It's not a product. It's a conversation with someone who's trained to listen. That's all. No judgment. Just someone on the other side. Because sometimes the bravest thing a man can do is ask for help. And before we go further, if this is hitting you the way I think it is, do something small for me. Hit the like button, not for the algorithm. For the next man who's sitting in his car right now searching for something he can't name. Your like helps him find this. Subscribe if you haven't. And when this is over, leave a comment. One sentence. Your truth. You'd be surprised how much it means to the stranger who reads it at 2 in the morning. Now, I want to talk about the other side of this. Because it would be easy, comfortable even, to make this whole story about what she did wrong. And I'm not going to do that. Not because I'm trying to be balanced for the sake of it, but because the truth is more complicated than blame. Here's what I think happens to a lot of women in these marriages. And I think it matters, even if it's hard to hear right now. She's also in pain. A different kind, but real. She married a man who used to pursue her, who used to look at her like she was the only person in the room, who used to fight for date nights and surprise her with small things and text her in the middle of the day just to say he was thinking about her. And that man slowly disappeared. Not because he stopped loving her, but because the weight of everything, the job, the bills, the kids, the mortgage, the invisible pressure to hold it all together crushed the playfulness out of him. She didn't lose a husband. She lost the version of him that made her feel chosen. And she grieved that, too, in her own way. Quietly, with her friends, with her journal, with the wine on Thursday nights that became Wednesday nights that became most nights. So here you have two people, both mourning the same marriage from opposite sides of the same bed. He mourns the woman who used to see him. She mourns the man who used to reach for her, and neither one has the courage to say, "I miss who we used to be." Because saying that out loud means admitting that what they have now isn't enough. And admitting that feels like opening a door they're both terrified to walk through. But here's where I need to be direct, and this part is specifically for the men listening. Understanding her pain doesn't erase yours. Acknowledging her side doesn't minimize what you went through. Empathy is not surrender. You can hold two truths at the same time. You can say, "She was hurting too," and also say, "The way she handled her pain caused damage that I didn't deserve." Both of those things can be true simultaneously, and you don't have to choose one to be valid. The man who stopped fighting for his marriage isn't a villain, and the woman who didn't see it happening isn't a monster. They're two imperfect people who built something beautiful together and watched it rust because neither one knew how to say the thing that mattered most. I need you. Not your function, not your role, you. 5 words. That's all it would have taken, at any point, from either of them. But those 5 words are the hardest words in the English language when you've spent years building armor against the person who was supposed to be your safety. So where does that leave us? Where does that leave the man who stopped fighting? I'll tell you where it doesn't leave him. It doesn't leave him broken. I know it feels that way. I know the mornings are heavy and the nights are long, and there are moments, small, ambush moments, where something reminds you of how it used to be and the grief hits you so hard you have to pull your car over and just breathe. But you're not broken. You're awake. And there's a difference between a man who's falling apart and a man who's finally seeing clearly for the first time in years. From the outside, they look the same. But inside, one is collapsing and the other is being rebuilt. I think about David, standing at that window, cold coffee, Sunday morning, his daughter on her bike. He didn't leave that day. He didn't leave for months after that. But something changed in him that morning that never changed back. He stopped performing. He stopped pretending that agreeing with everything was the same as being happy. He stopped filling silence with noise just to keep the peace. And slowly, not dramatically, not heroically, he started remembering who he was before the marriage told him who to be. He started going back to the garage, not to build a deck for someone else's Pinterest board, just to work with his hands, to feel sawdust and hear the radio and be alone with his own thoughts without someone else's expectations filling the room. He started calling his buddy again, not to talk about the marriage, just to talk about football, about nothing, about the kind of easy, pointless conversation that men need more than they'll ever admit. He started looking in the mirror and not flinching, not because everything was okay, but because he'd stopped lying to his own reflection. The moment a man stops fighting for a broken marriage is not the moment he gives up. It's the moment he starts fighting for himself. And that quiet, invisible, unglamorous decision is the bravest thing a man can do in a world that taught him his only value is what he provides for others. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm not going to say leave. I'm not going to say stay. I'm not going to hand you a checklist or a timeline or a mantra to repeat in the mirror every morning. I don't have the answers to your life. Nobody does, especially not a voice on the internet at midnight. But I will say this: the man